Sicily, July 10th, 1943, 0245 hours. General Alfredo Guzzoni, commanding the Italian Sixth Army, stands in his reinforced bunker overlooking the Mediterranean coastline, where 230,000 Italian and German defenders have spent months preparing elaborate defensive positions against what Mussolini's intelligence services estimate to be a limited Allied probe. The coastal fortifications stretch for hundreds of kilometers, manned by battle-tested Italian divisions who believe their defensive preparations and strategic positioning will repel any amphibious assault the Allies might attempt. What General Guzzoni cannot possibly know, what no Italian commander could comprehend in their most desperate calculations, is that 160,000 Allied troops are about to storm ashore in the largest amphibious operation in military history, supported by a naval armada of 2,590 vessels and backed by an American industrial machine that has already produced more military equipment in 2 years than Italy manufactured in the previous 2 decades. Within hours, the shocking mathematical reality of America's 16 million mobilized forces versus Italia's 1.2 million will transform from abstract numbers into an overwhelming tsunami of men, machines, and material that will expose the fatal miscalculations underlying fascist Italy's entry into global warfare. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. American logistics networks supporting operations in Italy demonstrated industrial capabilities that enabled sustained military operations on scales that challenged traditional military comprehension. The infrastructure supporting 16 million soldiers created supply systems that exceeded Italian national transportation capacity. Port operations at Naples processed 47,000 tons of supplies daily, while Italian national port capacity totaled 23,000 tons daily across all Mediterranean facilities. American logistics operations in single Italian ports exceeded Italian national transportation infrastructure while representing routine supply operations for American military forces. Port Commander Colonel Mitchell supervised operations that demonstrated American logistical methodology, where processing supplies through single facilities that exceed enemy national transportation capacity. Our logistics networks enable sustained operations that enemy infrastructure cannot support, even during peacetime conditions. Most critically, our supply rates exceed enemy consumption capability by ratios that guarantee resource superiority. American road construction demonstrated similar capabilities that created transportation networks supporting sustained military operations. Engineer battalions constructed 2,400 miles of military roads, while Italian national road construction had averaged 340 miles annually during peacetime conditions. Engineering coordinator General Pick supervised construction operations that transformed Italian transportation infrastructure, where constructing transportation networks that exceed enemy national infrastructure development achieved over decades of peacetime construction. Our engineering capabilities enable logistics support that enemy planning methodology never anticipated. American communication networks demonstrated technological capabilities that enabled coordination of military operations across distances that Italian communication systems could never maintain. Radio networks coordinated operations involving more personnel than Italian total military strength, while maintaining communication reliability that Italian systems had never achieved. Communication coordinator General Aiken supervised networks that enabled tactical coordination on scales that Italian military doctrine had never contemplated, where coordinating military operations involving more personnel than enemy total population while maintaining communication reliability that enables continuous operational effectiveness.
enemy forces cannot achieve similar coordination using their available communication infrastructure.
What Italian intelligence services have failed to detect is the complete transformation of American industry from peacetime production to military manufacturing on a scale never before achieved in human history. The conversion began in 1940 with the Arsenal of Democracy program that systematically restructured American manufacturing to support military production while maintaining civilian economic activity. Henry Kaiser's shipyards demonstrate this transformation most dramatically, using assembly line techniques borrowed from automobile manufacturing to produce Liberty ships at unprecedented rates. Kaiser's Richmond Shipyard No. 2 constructs entire cargo vessels in an average of 42 days, compared to the 244 days required by traditional shipbuilding methods. By 1943, American shipyards are launching new vessels faster than German U-boats can sink them, creating the maritime logistics capability necessary to transport millions of soldiers across oceans. American aircraft production represents an even more dramatic example of industrial mobilization. The Willow Run plant in Michigan, built by Ford Motor Company, produces B-24 Liberator bombers using automotive assembly line techniques that reduce construction time from months to hours. The plant's mile-long assembly line employs 42,000 workers operating in 3 shifts around the clock, producing one 4-engine bomber every 63 minutes at peak production. The standardization and mass production techniques that revolutionized American manufacturing extend far beyond weapons and vehicles to encompass every aspect of military logistics. American factories produce standardized uniforms, equipment, rations, and ammunition using interchangeable parts and quality control methods that ensure compatibility across all military units. A soldier trained on an M1 Garand rifle in Georgia can use any M1 Garand produced anywhere in America, while Italian soldiers often struggle with ammunition incompatibility between weapons manufactured in different factories. American training methods reflect the same industrial approach, with standardized curricula, mass-produced training materials, and systematic instruction that transforms civilian recruits into combat soldiers through scientific methods rather than traditional military customs. Training camps at Fort Benning, Fort Bragg, and dozens of other installations process recruits through identical 16-week programs that create uniformly trained soldiers equipped with standardized weapons and equipment. The logistical infrastructure supporting this massive military machine includes dedicated military railways, standardized supply depots, and communication networks that coordinate movements of men and material across continental distances. The Army Service Forces, established in 1942, manages supply chains that deliver everything from bullets to bandages to military units worldwide, using systematic planning and industrial management techniques.
As Italian forces strengthen their defensive positions during the summer of 1943, their commanders focus on maximizing the effectiveness of limited resources through careful positioning and tactical preparation. General Guzzoni's staff works with detailed terrain studies and defensive fire plans, coordinating the deployment of 230,000 defenders across Sicily's 25,000 square kilometers to create maximum resistance at critical points. Machine gun positions are carefully sited to provide interlocking fields of fire, while anti-tank guns cover likely approach routes for armored vehicles. Reserve units train repeatedly in counterattack operations designed to drive assault forces back into the sea during the critical first hours of any landing. Meanwhile, in training camps across America, the scale of preparation defies Italian comprehension. Camp Shelby in Mississippi alone processes 100,000 soldiers through combat training programs, while Fort Bragg simultaneously trains 75,000 paratroopers and artillery specialists. The 3rd Infantry Division completes amphibious assault training at Camp Pendleton, California, practicing coordinated attacks with naval and air support on specially constructed beach obstacles that replicate expected Italian defensive positions. American logistics preparation for Operation Husky involves coordinating 2,590 naval vessels, including 1,614 landing craft specifically designed for amphibious operations. These vessels, ranging from massive LSTs capable of carrying 40 Sherman tanks to small Higgins boats designed to land infantry directly on beaches, represent American industrial capacity applied specifically to amphibious warfare problems that Italian planners have never had to solve. The complexity of American planning extends to medical support, with hospital ships, field medical units, and evacuation procedures planned for casualties numbering in the tens of thousands. American medical planners prepare for battle casualties exceeding Italy's entire military medical capacity, with surgical teams, blood supplies, and hospital facilities that reflect American assumptions about industrial-scale warfare.
By June 1943, the concentration of Allied forces in North Africa for Operation Husky creates military capabilities that dwarf anything in Italian experience. The American component alone includes 66,000 soldiers of the 7th Army under General George S. Patton, supported by 374 Sherman tanks, 893 artillery pieces, and complete logistical units capable of sustaining offensive operations for months without resupply from American bases. British Empire forces add another 115,000 troops of the 8th Army under General Bernard Montgomery, including battle-tested desert veterans equipped with 612 tanks and supporting artillery. The combined Allied ground forces total 181,000 combat troops, supported by logistics personnel, Air Force units, and naval forces that bring the total Allied force to over 450,000 personnel directly involved in the Sicily operation. The naval component supporting this invasion includes 8 battleships, 2 aircraft carriers, 15 cruisers, 128 destroyers, and over 2,000 landing craft of various types. American shipyards have produced these vessels specifically for amphibious operations, with specialized designs that allow direct beach landings, rapid unloading of vehicles and supplies, and coordination with ground forces during assault operations. Air support for Operation Husky includes 4,000 Allied aircraft operating from bases across North Africa, Malta, and aircraft carriers. American aircraft production has reached 96,000 military aircraft annually by 1943, allowing replacement of combat losses while simultaneously expanding operational capabilities. Italian Air Force personnel, struggling to maintain 400 operational aircraft with limited fuel and spare parts, cannot comprehend air operations involving thousands of aircraft operating simultaneously. The ammunition expenditure planned for the Sicily invasion exceeds Italy's total annual ammunition production. American artillery units carry enough shells to sustain continuous bombardment for weeks, while Italian artillery positions must carefully conserve ammunition due to limited resupply capabilities. This difference in logistics philosophy reflects the fundamental disparity between Italian resource constraints and American industrial abundance.
Sergeant Frank Morrison of the 1st Infantry Division represents the American soldier created by industrial-scale military training. Morrison, a factory worker from Detroit before the war, completed 16 weeks of basic training at Fort Benning, followed by specialized infantry training and amphibious assault preparation. He carries standardized equipment, including an M1 Garand rifle, field pack, medical supplies, and ammunition load that represents the output of dozens of American factories coordinated through military logistics networks. Morrison's landing craft contains 30 similarly equipped soldiers, each trained to identical standards and carrying interchangeable equipment. Their assault boat represents one of 1,614 similar vessels participating in Operation Husky, part of an industrial production program that manufactured specialized amphibious warfare equipment in quantities exceeding anything previously imagined. On the Italian side, Sergeant Antonio Rossi of the Livorno Division embodies the individual soldier created by traditional military methods adapted to limited resources. Rossi, a veteran of 3 years of warfare, commands a machine gun position overlooking Gila Beach with equipment that reflects Italian industrial limitations. His Beretta M37 machine gun requires specialized ammunition manufactured in limited quantities, while his position relies on pre-positioned supplies that cannot be easily replaced once consumed. Rossi's defensive sector covers 800 meters of coastline with 40 Italian soldiers, each equipped with individual weapons and equipment that vary in manufacture date, condition, and ammunition compatibility. Their defensive position, while well-constructed and tactically sound, lacks the depth and firepower density that American industrial capacity makes possible. The mathematical disparity becomes personal when Morrison's landing craft approaches Rossi's position as part of a coordinated assault involving 160,000 Allied troops supported by naval bombardment from 200 warships. Rossi's 40 soldiers, no matter how well-trained or motivated, face attack by forces whose numerical superiority reflects America's ability to mobilize and equip military units on an unprecedented scale.
At precisely 03:15 hours, naval bombardment commences as Allied warships begin systematic destruction of Italian coastal defenses with firepower that exceeds anything in European military experience. The battleship USS Massachusetts alone fires 786 rounds of 16-inch ammunition in 40 minutes, each shell weighing 2,700 pounds and capable of destroying concrete fortifications that Italian engineers considered bomb-proof. General Guzzoni, monitoring initial contact reports from his command bunker, receives information that challenges every assumption underlying Italian defensive planning. Radio communications report simultaneous landings across 150 kilometers of coastline, involving numbers of assault craft that exceed Italian estimates of total Allied naval capabilities in the Mediterranean. The Livorno Division's coastal positions disappear under naval bombardment that continues for 2 hours, systematically destroying communication lines, artillery positions, and command bunkers with precision and volume impossible to counter using Italian artillery resources. Counter-battery fire from Italian coastal guns proves ineffective against naval units that operate beyond the range of Italian weapons, while delivering devastating bombardment with naval guns calibrated for maximum destructive effect. As the first American landing craft beach at Gela, Sergeant Morrison and his squad encounter Italian defensive positions that have been largely neutralized by preparatory bombardment. The beach obstacles and wire entanglements that Italian engineers spent months installing have been systematically destroyed by naval gunfire and aerial bombardment, clearing lanes for assault troops equipped with specialized gear designed specifically for amphibious operations. Sergeant Rossi, commanding one of the few Italian positions to survive initial bombardment, opens fire with his Beretta machine gun as American infantry advance inland from the beach. His weapon, while accurate and reliable, faces targets equipped with body armor, supported by Sherman tanks, and backed by artillery fire from naval vessels offshore. The individual courage and training of Italian soldiers cannot overcome the systematic application of overwhelming firepower made possible by American industrial capacity. Within 6 hours of the initial landing, American forces have established beachheads defended by 40,000 troops, supported by 200 Sherman tanks, landed directly onto Sicilian beaches. The logistics capability that makes this rapid buildup possible reflects American industrial planning that anticipated the equipment needs of sustained offensive operations against prepared defensive positions. As afternoon approaches, the mathematical reality of 16 million versus 1.2 million begins to manifest in tactical situations across Sicily. American forces, having established secure beachheads, begin offensive operations supported by logistics networks that can sustain continuous combat operations indefinitely.
Italian defenders, fighting from positions that cannot be resupplied or reinforced, face the gradual erosion of their combat capability through ammunition expenditure and casualty replacement. Colonel Moncinelli, commanding Italian forces around Gela, watches his carefully prepared defensive positions collapse under sustained attack by forces whose ammunition expenditure exceeds his total available supply. American artillery units fire 10,000 rounds in support of a single infantry advance, while Moncinelli's artillery must limit fire to preserve shells for critical defensive fires. The German 15th Panzer Division, reinforcing Italian positions with 100 tanks and assault guns, demonstrates the difference between European military capabilities and American industrial production. The German counterattack, while tactically sound and aggressively executed, encounters American anti-tank defenses that include 57mm anti-tank guns, 3-inch towed anti-tank guns, and M10 tank destroyers landed specifically to counter German armor threats. American tank crews, trained on standardized equipment and supported by maintenance units with unlimited spare parts, operate Sherman tanks whose reliability and availability rates exceed 90%. German and Italian armored units, struggling with fuel shortages and limited spare parts, cannot sustain continuous operations against opponents whose logistics networks ensure constant operational readiness. The battle for Gela demonstrates how American industrial capacity translates into battlefield advantages that transcend individual unit quality or tactical skill. Italian soldiers, fighting with desperate courage from defensive positions, face attackers supported by naval gunfire, close air support, and artillery concentrations that can be sustained for hours without regard to ammunition conservation. As evening approaches on July 10th, American forces have established positions 15 kilometers inland, supported by logistics operations that have landed 15,000 tons of supplies and equipment. The rate of American buildup exceeds Italian estimates of total Allied capabilities, creating a mathematical progression that makes Italian defensive success increasingly impossible.
By July 17, 1943, 7 days after the initial landings, the mathematical inevitability of America's numerical superiority has transformed Sicily from a battlefield into a demonstration of industrial warfare principles. The Sixth Army's carefully prepared defensive positions have crumbled, not through tactical failure or lack of courage, but through the simple arithmetic of sustained combat against an enemy whose resources appear limitless. General Guzzoni's final situation report to Rome paints a picture that Italian military leadership struggles to comprehend. American forces have landed 340,000 troops, supported by 600 Sherman tanks, 1,200 artillery pieces, and logistics networks that deliver 8,000 tons of supplies daily to forward positions. The Italian garrison, originally numbering 230,000 defenders, has been reduced to fewer than 60,000 effective combatants through casualties, desertions, and units that have simply disintegrated under continuous bombardment. The speed of American reinforcement exceeds anything in Italian military experience. While Italian commanders require weeks to move a single division across mainland Italy using limited railway capacity and fuel shortages, American forces land complete divisions directly onto Sicilian beaches with full equipment and ammunition loads. The 45th Infantry Division arrives from the United States and enters combat within 72 hours of docking, demonstrating logistics capabilities that Italian planners considered theoretically impossible. Colonel Roatta, analyzing intelligence reports from surviving Italian units, documents American military capabilities that challenge fundamental assumptions about democratic nations' capacity for sustained warfare.
American artillery units fire 50,000 rounds daily without apparent concern for ammunition conservation, while Italian artillery must ration shells to fewer than 20 rounds per gun per day. This disparity reflects production capabilities, where American factories manufacture more artillery shells in one day than Italian factories produce in 6 months. The psychological impact on Italian survivors proves as devastating as the physical destruction. Lieutenant Marco Benedetti, one of few officers to escape the Livorno Division's destruction, reports that Italian soldiers surrender not from cowardice, but from mathematical despair. "They have more bullets than we have men," Benedetti writes in his final report. "Their single artillery barrage contains more shells than our entire division carried into battle."
The Sicily operation reveals the true scope of American mobilization in ways that transform global strategic calculations. While Italy committed its maximum available forces to defend Sicily, representing nearly 20% of its total military strength, the American contribution to Operation Husky represents less than 1% of America's mobilized military capability. This mathematical relationship indicates that America can sustain multiple simultaneous operations of Sicily's scale, while Italy has exhausted its strategic reserves in a single defensive battle. Intelligence reports reaching Berlin and Rome in August 1943 paint an increasingly desperate picture of Axis' strategic position. German analysts, studying American production figures obtained through neutral sources, calculate that American military production exceeds combined Axis output by margins that make sustained resistance mathematically impossible. American aircraft production of 96,000 units annually dwarfs German production of 25,000 aircraft, while American tank production of 29,000 vehicles yearly exceeds combined German and Italian production by 400%. The implications extend far beyond equipment numbers to encompass trained personnel replacement capabilities. American training establishments process 200,000 new soldiers monthly through standardized programs, while Italian training capacity, limited by instructor availability and equipment shortages, cannot replace monthly combat losses. The mathematical progression suggests that American forces will grow stronger through continuous reinforcement, while Axis forces weaken through attrition that cannot be replaced. Field Marshal Albert Kesselring, commanding German forces in Italy, submits classified assessments to Berlin describing American logistics capabilities that operate according to different principles than European military experience. American supply networks deliver fresh vegetables, ice cream, and recreational equipment to frontline positions, demonstrating surplus capacity that allows attention to soldier morale while maintaining maximum combat effectiveness. German and Italian forces, struggling to deliver basic ammunition and medical supplies to combat units, cannot comprehend logistic systems with sufficient capacity for non-essential items.
The Allied invasion of mainland Italy at Salerno on September 9, 1943, demonstrates how Sicily's lessons translate into strategic dominance across multiple theaters simultaneously. While Italian forces still recover from Sicily's losses and attempt to reorganize defensive positions, American and British forces launch Operation Avalanche with 170,000 troops supported by 627 naval vessels and 1,200 aircraft. General Heinrich von Wiekinghoff, commanding German 10th Army in southern Italy, faces mathematical problems that tactical skill cannot solve. His 100,000 German troops, reinforced by remaining Italian units still loyal to Mussolini's regime, confront Allied forces whose numerical superiority increases daily through continuous reinforcement. American Liberty ships arrive at captured Italian ports carrying complete divisions with full equipment, while German reinforcements must travel overland through increasingly dangerous routes under constant air attack. The Italian military's collapse accelerates through September as units that survived Sicily find themselves facing renewed American assaults supported by even greater firepower concentrations. The 16th Panzer Division, attempting to contain American breakouts from Salerno beachheads, encounters artillery concentrations of 400 guns per kilometer of front,
firepower densities that exceed anything in European military experience. Captain Wilhelm Schmaltz, commanding a battle group defending the Salerno-Naples highway, describes fighting American forces whose ammunition expenditure exceeds German annual production quotas. They fire more shells in 1 hour than we receive in 1 month, Schmaltz reports. Every American attack begins with bombardment that continues until our positions cease to exist, followed by infantry supported by unlimited tank and air support. Italian soldiers, witnessing their German allies' inability to contain American advances despite superior individual training and equipment quality, begin surrendering in numbers that reflect mathematical rather than moral calculations. The 222nd Coastal Division surrenders intact on September 12th, when its commander concludes that resistance will result in complete annihilation without affecting American operational capabilities. The speed of American advance through southern Italy demonstrates logistics capabilities that transform strategic mobility. American mechanized divisions advance 40 kilometers daily while maintaining full combat readiness, supported by fuel and ammunition supplies that arrive continuously through captured ports. German and Italian forces, limited by fuel rationing and ammunition conservation, cannot match American operational tempo even when occupying prepared defensive positions.
Intercepted radio communications from the Pacific Theater reveal the true scope of American military capabilities in ways that completely redefine strategic calculations. American forces simultaneously conduct major offensive operations at Tarawa, Bougainville, and the Gilbert Islands, while maintaining full strength in European theaters, demonstrating military capabilities that exceed combined Axis estimates of total American potential. The Battle of Tarawa alone involves 35,000 American troops, supported by 200 naval vessels and 700 aircraft, representing military capabilities equivalent to Italy's maximum effort in any single operation. Yet this Pacific operation occurs simultaneously with continued American expansion in Italy, ongoing supply of Soviet forces, and preparation for additional European operations that intelligence reports suggest will dwarf previous amphibious assaults. Admiral Angelo Iachino, analyzing American Pacific operations from Italian naval intelligence summaries, calculates that American naval construction has produced more major combat vessels in 2 years than Italy constructed in the previous 2 decades. American shipyards launch new aircraft carriers monthly while simultaneously producing hundreds of landing craft, destroyers, and support vessels that enable global operations impossible for European maritime powers. The mathematical progression becomes inescapable when Italian planners attempt to calculate American military expansion rates. If America can increase its military strength from 1.8 million in 1941 to 16 million in 1943, while simultaneously expanding industrial production by 300%, continued resistance only delays rather than prevents complete Axis defeat through numerical overwhelming. General Vittorio Ambrosio, Italian Army Chief of Staff, submits classified reports to King Victor Emmanuel describing military mathematical relationships that make continued Italian participation in Axis alliance strategically impossible. American military expansion continues accelerating, while Italian military strength decreases through combat losses that cannot be replaced given industrial and manpower limitations.
Lieutenant Colonel James Gavin, commanding the 505th Parachute Infantry Regiment during operations in southern Italy, represents the American soldier created through systematic military expansion. Gavin's regiment, part of the 82nd Airborne Division, deploys with equipment loads per soldier exceeding the total individual equipment allocation for entire Italian companies. Each American paratrooper carries more ammunition, better communications equipment, and superior individual weapons than Italian squad leaders receive. Gavin's tactical radio network connects individual platoon leaders to divisional command posts, naval gunfire support coordinators, and air support controllers through communication systems that exceed Italian regimental command capabilities. This technology advantage, multiplied across 16 million American military personnel,
creates coordination capabilities that transform tactical situations through information superiority. On the opposing side, Colonel Giuseppe Angelozzi, commanding remnants of the Napoli division during the retreat from Naples, embodies the Italian soldier confronting mathematical impossibility. Angelozzi's division, originally numbering 12,000 troops, has been reduced to 3,200 effective soldiers through casualties and desertions that cannot be replaced. His remaining equipment includes weapons manufactured between 1938 and 1941, with ammunition supplies sufficient for 2 days of intensive combat. Angelozzi's communication network relies on telephone lines repeatedly severed by American artillery and motorcycle messengers operating through terrain under constant air surveillance. His artillery support consists of 8 remaining guns with 40 rounds total ammunition, while American forces attacking his positions coordinate fires from 200 guns with unlimited ammunition supplies delivered by truck convoy every 6 hours. The personal mathematics become inescapable when Angelozzi calculates that American artillery fire against his positions in 1 day exceeds all ammunition his division carried at full strength. Individual courage and tactical skill cannot overcome systematic material disadvantage that reflects America's ability to produce military equipment at rates exceeding Italian military consumption by orders of magnitude. Sergeant Anthony Ricci of the 36th Infantry Division, advancing through Italian mountain positions near Cassino, carries individual equipment produced through American industrial systems that coordinate hundreds of factories across dozens of states. His M1 Garand rifle, manufactured in Springfield, Massachusetts, fires ammunition produced in Lake City, Missouri, while his combat boots come from Akron, Ohio, and his field radio from Chicago, Illinois. This coordination of continental resources for individual soldier equipment reflects American industrial integration impossible for Italian military supply systems. At precisely 03:15 hours, naval bombardment commences as Allied warships begin systematic destruction of Italian coastal defenses with firepower that exceeds anything in European military experience. The battleship USS Massachusetts alone fires 786 rounds of 16-inch ammunition in 40 minutes, each shell weighing 2,700 pounds and capable of destroying concrete fortifications that Italian engineers considered bomb-proof. General Guzzoni, monitoring initial contact reports from his command bunker, receives information that challenges every assumption underlying Italian defensive planning. Radio communications report simultaneous landings across 150 kilometers of coastline, involving numbers of assault craft that exceed Italian estimates of total Allied naval capabilities in the Mediterranean. The Livorno Division's coastal positions disappear under naval bombardment that continues for 2 hours, systematically destroying communication lines, artillery positions, and command bunkers with precision and volume impossible to counter using Italian artillery resources. Counter-battery fire from Italian coastal guns proves ineffective against naval units that operate beyond the range of Italian weapons, while delivering devastating bombardment with naval guns calibrated for maximum destructive effect. As the first American landing craft beach at Gela, Sergeant Morrison and his squad encounter Italian defensive positions that have been largely neutralized by preparatory bombardment. The beach obstacles and wire entanglements that Italian engineers spent months installing have been systematically destroyed by naval gunfire and aerial bombardment, clearing lanes for assault troops equipped with specialized gear designed specifically for amphibious operations. Sergeant Rossi, commanding one of the few Italian positions to survive initial bombardment, opens fire with his Breda machine gun as American infantry advance inland from the beach. His weapon, while accurate and reliable, faces targets equipped with body armor, supported by Sherman tanks, and backed by artillery fire from naval vessels offshore. The individual courage and training of Italian soldiers cannot overcome the systematic application of overwhelming firepower made possible by American industrial capacity. By December 1943, American technological advantages multiply beyond equipment quantities to encompass qualitative superiorities that Italian industry cannot match. American radar systems, installed on ships and aircraft throughout Mediterranean operations, provide surveillance and targeting capabilities that make Italian defensive positions visible to American forces, while Italian commanders operate without comparable intelligence-gathering systems. The SCR-584 radar system, deployed with American anti-aircraft batteries, tracks aircraft at ranges exceeding 50 kilometers with accuracy sufficient for automatic gun laying. Italian anti-aircraft defenses, relying on visual identification and manual gun laying, cannot effectively engage American aircraft operating with radar navigation and bombing systems. This technology gap multiplies American air superiority beyond numerical advantages to include technical capabilities that Italian scientists understand theoretically but cannot reproduce given industrial limitations. American aircraft navigation systems, including radio beacons and radar altimeters, allow precision bombing operations in weather conditions that ground Italian aircraft completely. The technological disparity means American air operations continue regardless of meteorological conditions, while Italian air defenses operate only during clear weather with adequate visibility for visual aircraft identification. Communication technology demonstrates similar American advantages, as FM radio systems provide clear communications at ranges where Italian AM systems suffer from interference and atmospheric distortion. American infantry units coordinate complex operations through communication networks that function reliably under combat conditions, while Italian units often lose communication contact during artillery bombardments that disrupt their more primitive radio systems. The mathematical implications become clear when Italian technical specialists analyze captured American equipment and calculate the industrial infrastructure required for mass production. The SCR-300 portable radio carried by American infantry squads requires manufacturing precision and electronic components that exceed Italian industrial capabilities even for prototype production. Yet American factories produce these radios by thousands monthly for routine distribution to combat units. By April 1944, American forces in Italy demonstrate sustained defensive capabilities that reflect global resource mobilization rather than theater-specific concentration. The Fifth Army, advancing toward Rome, operates with ammunition expenditure rates that exceed Italian annual production while maintaining high operational tempo through continuous supply operations that function with mechanical precision. General Mark Clark's advance on Rome involves 250,000 American and Allied troops supported by 400 tanks and 800 artillery pieces, representing standard American force concentrations rather than maximum effort operations. The routine nature of this force deployment indicates American ability to conduct multiple operations of similar scale simultaneously, while Italian resistance represents maximum national effort concentrated in single geographic area. The breakthrough at Anzio demonstrates American tactical capabilities enhanced by systematic material advantages that multiply individual unit effectiveness. American infantry advances supported by artillery concentrations of 300 guns per kilometer create firepower densities that eliminate Italian defensive positions through volume rather than precision, reflecting ammunition supplies that allow area bombardment rather than selective targeting. Italian casualties during the Rome campaign revealed the human cost of mathematical military disadvantage as defending units suffer complete destruction through sustained bombardment and combined arms attacks. The 362nd Infantry Division loses 11,000 of 12,000 personnel during 2 weeks of defensive operations. casualties that reflect American ability to sustain continuous offensive operations until defensive resistance ceases completely. The speed of American advance following defensive breakthroughs demonstrates logistics capabilities that maintain offensive tempo through systematic supply operations. American mechanized units advance continuously for 72 hours while maintaining full combat effectiveness, supported by fuel and ammunition convoys that arrive according to predetermined schedules regardless of tactical situations. The liberation of Rome on June 4, 1944, culminates the mathematical demonstration of American military superiority that began with Sicily operations 11 months earlier. American forces enter Rome with 200,000 troops in perfect order, equipped with standardized weapons, supported by unlimited supplies, and backed by industrial production that continues expanding rather than reaching maximum output. The contrast with remaining Axis forces becomes stark, as German units retreat through Rome with equipment shortages that reflect 18 months of attrition against American production capabilities. German soldiers march with individual equipment loads reduced to basic weapons and minimal ammunition, while American soldiers carry complete individual equipment sets, including items considered luxuries by European military standards. Italian civilian observers witnessing American forces in Rome describe military units whose individual soldier equipment exceeds pre-war Italian officer standards. American enlisted men carry personal radios, individual first aid supplies, and weapons maintenance kits that reflect industrial production aimed at individual soldier effectiveness rather than minimum acceptable standards for military function. The mathematical progression that began with 16 million American mobilization versus 1.2 million Italian strength has evolved through combat operations into strategic dominance that encompasses technological superiority, logistics abundance, and systematic military effectiveness that transcends individual unit quality or tactical innovation. General Giovanni Mess, surrendering Italian First Army in Tunisia, summarizes the mathematical reality in his final report to Rome. We fought with individual courage against systematic superiority. They produced more military equipment in 1 month than our nation manufactured in 1 year. Defeat was mathematical rather than military. The American military machine that overwhelmed Italian resistance in Sicily, mainland Italy, and finally Rome, represents industrial mobilization principles applied to warfare with scientific precision. The transformation of American industrial capacity from peacetime production to military manufacturing created capabilities that exceeded European estimates of theoretical maximum by margins that made resistance prolonged rather than prevented inevitable defeat. The human cost of this mathematical warfare falls most heavily on individual soldiers who faced systematic material disadvantage through strategic decisions made years before combat operations began. Italian soldiers fought with weapons manufactured in limited quantities against opponents carrying equipment produced through continental industrial coordination, creating tactical situations where individual courage confronted systematic material superiority that no amount of training or motivation could overcome.